Okay, quick thought, and hopefully I'll get another thought in more on the parsha. But I just thought that it's interesting that this week is the double parsha of Veyakel Pekudei. It's the last two parshios in Sefer Shemos. Okay, and we're going to begin Vayikra the following week. It's also Parshas HaChodesh that we're getting ready for Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and we're getting into the swing of things, so to speak. So the point I am going to make is the following. If you look, the Ramban in the beginning of Sefer Shemos discusses, in essence, what is the focus of the Sefer. That's what an introduction usually does. And he says that the Bereshis was talking about God's creation, etc., but we're going to talk about in Shemos, so it's talking about Galus and Geula would be the basic terms to explain what he's talking about. That this Sefer begins with Galus, the Klal Yisrael's first exile, and ends with the Geula. However, if that's true, and this is and the Ramban saying this, I'm not, please don't misunderstand me, I'm trying to say something. I'm trying to explain what the motivation of Ramban. The question you have to ask is, the Sefer should have ended right after Yitzias Mitzrayim, maybe after Yam Suf, but what is, and then, okay, if you want to go even a little further, Matan Torah. However, Sefer goes on after Matan Torah, talks about the Egel, talks about the Haskamas Mishkan is really what the end of the Sefer is. So what clearly Ramban is saying, and he does say this, is that the idea, we may think the idea of freedom, of Geula, is that moment when we go from being slaves to being a free person. And that was, you could pick to that point where things change. Makos Bechoros, Yam Suf, maybe Matan Torah. However, what is really the state of Geula is having God's presence in our lives on a regular daily basis. And therefore, we see very clearly that it's only with the Haskamas Mishkan and the state of having Hashem and living a life of that where we're fulfilling our purpose and God's purpose in this world, and is where we get to that state where we have Geula. So up until that point, the non-Jewish concept of most of their stories always end with the hero saving the day, the heroine saving the day, or the bad guy dying, and boom, and they lived happily ever after. End of story. Our happy end of story is only when we've accomplished that and we are living our daily lives. Usually, Disney will have the sequel, to tell you maybe the after the story, and they talk about their struggles till they get that. And you see, Klal Yisrael did have their struggles after Matan Torah, after Yam Suf, in order to finally get to the state where we had the Shekhinah resting in the Mishkan, and we had that state where we were, where we were. We see that also in the Megillah story. If, according to the story that you would see in a more secular view, the bad guy wanted to kill the Jews. We conquered the bad guy. Jews, Mordechai got the ring, and boom, end of story. Thank you very much. However, it goes on and explains what happens next, that the Klal Yisrael didn't really reach the Kimu V'Kiblu until 11 months later, when they were in Adar and they defended their lives and they stood up for themselves, and they created the time where they now accepted this and they accepted a whole new direction. That's where the Megillah ends. That's the end of the story. That's the part of the Yeshua that is really the whole purpose of everything. It's not that momentary victory. It's not the quick victory over the bad guy. And that's what it is. And that's what Sefer Shemos is all about. And it ends by Veyakel Pekudei going through everything that they did afterwards to get this Mishkan together and to put it up. And that's what it ends on, where the state is that Moshe erected it and the Shekhinah was erected. And then we are able to go into Sefer Vayikra and go into the month of Nisan, where is the month of Geula. That's why it's also interesting. By Pesach, we say Zman Matan Torah Seinu. Zman Chirisenu, it's the time of our freedom. And the question I ask is, what point is that freedom? Is it Makos Bechoros the first night? Is it the seventh night? What is the 7-day span that we keep on making the bracha of Zman Chirisenu? How can you have a 7-day freedom period? You know what I mean? Where it became, what was that freedom going on? Have a great Shabbos, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon.